You good, everybody? Alrighty then. Good evening, everybody. I hereby call to order this meeting of Santa Rita Union School District on November 13th, 2024.
Ms. Cindy Lopez,
Present.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Present.
Ms. Alvariano,
Present.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Here.
Mr. Neil Patel.
Present.
All members present.
My favorite part, Pledge of Allegiance. I think we all went. Cindy, would you like to take it today? I just like keep going down the road. Thank you.
Ready?
Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I have approval of board agenda 1.3. I understand there might be a modification.
Yes, Mr. Patel, our Vice President Jacob Sandoval has requested that we move action item 9.1 forward of 8.1.
Okay. Board members, any discussion, or we just want to move to vote on adopting the agenda with the said changes?
I have one more
Oh, yeah, one more.
request.
Okay, sorry about that.
And a secondary request from our SRTA leadership asking the board to consider tabling item 9.5, the approval item, action item for yonder cell phone pouches.
I motion to approve the agenda with the amendments.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
No.
Motion 4-0. Sorry, 4-1.
Regarding closed session items, we have 3 items, 2.1, public employee appointments, employment and evaluation and discipline, 2.2, potential litigation, and 2.3, conference with labor negotiators. Do we have any public comments regarding closed session items?
We do not.
All right. Having said that, I would entertain a motion to go into closed motion.
I motion to adjourn to closed session.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Captain.
Motion 5-0.
All right, welcome everybody. We're back in session of Santa Rita Union School District meeting on November 13, 2024. There were no actions taken in closed sessions. Board members, looking at approval of consent agenda. Any modifications or changes, or I'll entertain a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion 5-0.
All right, Captain, thank you. All right, we're gonna move forward with 6.1, school spotlight. I understand we have a music teacher recognition for one of our staff members.
Can I go speak over the podium?
Okay.
So tonight, we want to highlight one of our elementary music teachers, Jody Clark. Jody does an amazing job with our students. Some of our staff got to visit today to see her instruction at La Jolla when we were there for learning walks, and we heard it was great. So last year, Jody was awarded, tell me the title, Elementary Music Teacher
Elementary music specialist.
Music Specialist of the Year by the California Association of Music Educators. And so we're really proud of that and wanted to make sure that we recognized her publicly for the service that she does for our students. I asked Diane Galing, who is one of our other music teachers, who works closely with Jody, to just say a few words about her work since they collaborate so closely.
Becky, you've asked me to say a few words. Have you ever noticed me saying?
I'm gonna regret this.
Well, my job here is not that hard, and it's try to convince or to convince you how lucky we are to have Jody. Jody not only was well-deserved of this award from last year, is she came here approximately 8 years ago. We were discussing that, and took a chance on us. And I mean, coming from Michigan, that's quite a ways. And she took a hold of the curriculum and formed it into a curriculum so that each grade level now has standards and objectives that they are to meet every year. And because of her, my program is better as well, because the kids come in, they already read notes and everything and some music, and it's great. So whatever we do, we need to keep her. We can't lose her. She's great at what she does. She has the patience for the elementary kids, and we just can't lose her. We gotta keep her. Like I say, she's well deserved of this award. So please, let's keep her. Let's hug her. Let's give her lots of praise.
Okay. Well, thank you and good evening, everybody. I started teaching here this is my 8th year. It's my first teaching job that I've ever had, and I love it. And I'm so thankful for being allowed to work here and grow. When I first started, the music program for Santa Rita and La Jolla was pretty minimal. I had 2/3 of a classroom at one school and no classroom at the other. And since that time, I have 2 full classrooms, and each grade now has their own set of instruments that they're allowed to learn, including a full keyboard program, a ukulele program, and we're trying to work on incorporating some sort of guitar program for mariachi and et cetera at the middle school level. So they've really had a ton of growth in all aspects. And just the last couple of years, we've also been trying to build into literacy because we really feel as a district that that's important. So we have a lot of story orchestra books specifically that play classical music, but also tell a story that's relevant to the kids' learning level. And they're doing art projects with it, and they're playing the instruments along. So we're really trying to work with all of the teachers to put everything together to help them in their general classes as well as in music, and prepare them for middle school as well if they'd like to pursue music that way. So that's where we're at right now.
All right, well, thank you for that recognition, and we would like to get a photo.
Can we get some board comments first? Is that
Oh,
okay?
sorry, yes, comment
Want to give an
first.
opportunity for fellow board members to recognize one of our staff members. Cindy, would you like to say any words from my left?
Of course. You earned the spotlight, Jody, though. And thank you. Thank you for your work. I mean, to know that it's your first teaching job and that you took charge and, basically built this curriculum. And music's so important in life's period, us adults, I mean, emotions, whatnot. And to know that the kids are starting, they're learning, like Ms. Gail said, they come to her now and they're like, hey, now they know, some key, it's awesome. So thank you so much for that. And we are lucky to have you.
Thank you so much. When school's a place of joy for kids, it changes everything. So thank you for all you do.
Also, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here and you really deserve this recognition. I can remember, and music is very much an important part of a child's education. Without music and the arts, we're losing it. We've been losing it. I can remember a time during my board, since I've been on the board, where we totally had a skeleton administration. I mean, here at the boardroom, but we didn't cut music. And so, again, thank you for being here.
And I just want to say thank you, and also for not only loving your job, because I think one of the things that you did was not just come in, but it's like, how can I grow it? And to hear the progression that's happening in our district. The school spotlight is the part I appreciate the most, because it really kind of highlights what's happening in the district. A lot of times, we go into the policies and stuff, but I think seeing how music and how vital that is super important, that, you have the board support and continuing everything that you do. So thank you so much for what you do.
Wow. What can I say, Ms. Clark? I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your dedication. Thank you for coming to Salinas. And thank you for joining Santa Rita family. Music is one of those special classes. I talked to a music teacher a while ago and he said, in school we have all these subjects, English, math, science, whatever, but that reaches your academics, your mental state, your understanding. But what music does, it touches their soul. It touches their well-being. And, that's an element that is just as crucial as all the other subjects, even more so to keep students motivated, to keep coming back, to find their purpose. So I know it's an award for music, but I just wanted to say it's a music for the overall well-being of our students. You're providing them that avenue where they can release and show and experiment and become themselves that they were meant to be. So once again, I can't say enough praises for you except thank you.
Picture time now.
Okay, go ahead. I'll go in the front. Huh? Yeah.
That was cool.
You guys want to come in front? It looks weird.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
We'll go in the front.
Thank you. No, you don't. I can't even see if it's blurry. They lost the camera and somehow I picked it up, so.
Diane Galing had a special request that I bring my plaque out
Okay.
because she has her plaque and Jody has her plaque. So in 2022, these ladies clearly responsible for the fact that I was given, outstanding administrator award from.
No, say her.
Diane Galing, middle school, 2023, and then Miss Clark, 20. I feel like we swept her category. That's- Great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you again, Ms. Clark and Ms. Galing. Thank you very, very much. All right. Okay, we're gonna keep moving towards our agenda here. Next up is 6.2, Santa Rita Teachers Association. Do we have any member here?
Ashley is not here this evening, Ashley Tripp, who is the SRTA president, but she did send a text to me to say that she's excited about the tentative agreement, but does not have an official statement tonight.
All righty then. All right, 6.3, CSCA. Do we have a representative?
We do not.
Okay, we're gonna move to 6.4, Superintendent's Cabinet.
Okay, we'll start this evening with our Director of Engagement and School Climate, Dr. Summer Prather-Smith.
Good evening. Good evening. I have a quick handout for you. Sarah had requested some information about our Saturday Academy. So I just have a 1-page here that I will quickly go over. So just a reminder that we had our first series of Saturday Academies, which was 5 sessions for us. The average student attendance was 105 students, 68 of those being at the elementary, 37 of those being at the middle school. Remembering that our target for Saturday Academy is ADA recovery as well. In addition to that, we had an additional 49 students being served with migrant education at Santa Rita Elementary. Through all of that, you'll see that we were able to recoup 357 days worth of time, which equates to $26,775 in ADA recovery through those Saturdays as well. Because it's only 5 Saturdays, what we're doing is at the conclusion, there's the formative assessments that are forming what the teachers are doing the next time. It's hard to do kind of a pre-post long-term with only the 5 sessions. We found that if you remember last time we did longer sessions and attendance dropped off. So what we found is that we would do the 5 weeks and then we have the winter break. We'll come back in January, do another 5 weeks. There's the break and then we'll do 5 weeks again. So 3 5-week sessions with students. Any questions?
Do we have any issues regarding recruitment for staff to?
We have
Staff
not.
and-
Nope. We were fully staffed. We are able, and again, we overstaff Saturday Academies to make sure that students get individualized attention. So there's a teacher and a paraprofessional, and we were fine with staffing. Yeah.
Not so much questions on
Yeah.
this, but have you come across any concerns from parents regarding the current immigration scare from students or for any
Yes.
mental health? Because I know there's some other districts that have had some concerns.
Yeah, so we put out messaging right away. I've been working with our partnering districts around a support system that they're putting out as well in those connections. I haven't received direct communication in my role here, but of course I'm still highly connected to our migrant community. So I've received lots of communications there and I'm directing them towards those support agencies that are available to support our families.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Anything else about Saturday Academy? I want to say a big thank you to Dr. Madonna Katis, who again organized beautifully this entire event. And then lastly, I just want to share that on Monday, our superintendent, Dr. Melissa Alderman, gave up her space on the Salinas City float. We asked if in place of Dr. Alderman, we could invite our teachers here in the district who were veterans to join in that float. We had 4 individuals who could have joined us. So Mr. Cesar Bedon from Santa Rita, Nurse Nora, who's one of our district nurses, Michael Zimmerman, and then Chuck Helm, who's our Director of Nutritional Services. Several others had other events planned with their family. Mr. Helm got sick the day of, but Mr. Zimmerman was able to join us on that float that day and be recognized for his service. So thank you. Thank you for that. Along with Mr. Sandoval, but he left.
Alrighty then. Oh,
Miss Claudia Ariano is not with us this evening, and so we'll move on to our Chief Business Officer, Rosa Zamudio.
Good evening. I don't have any other additional comments other than the information that I shared on the Friday letter and the public disclosure, which is coming up in one of my items. Thank you.
And then Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Ms. Becky Moore.
Thank you. I have an informational item coming up this evening, so I'll save my comments for then.
alrighty then, we'll move on to, I think that was it, right? Just to make sure. All right, I'm gonna move on to 6.4, Superintendent's Cabinet, starting from my left. Already done. Sorry about that. I pressed the wrong one. Sorry about that. We're on 6.5, Board and Superintendent. To my left, first would be Cindy Lopez.
So I don't have much, just a little recap of last month. We had a lot of events here in our district the last week of October. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to all of them, but I was able to go to one of the events, which was here actually at Gavilan View, and it was the festival for the Dia de los Muertos. And we actually had one of our students from Gavilan View play in the mariachi. She has a lovely voice. So that was awesome to see. There was a crowd, and it was nice to see, the culture and whatnot. Also, I know we had other events like the Pique graduation here. I wasn't able to come. And then they also had a movie held here at Gavilan View by Councilman Sandoval. I wanted to come. My little one was sick. It was too cold. It's really cold now, so I wasn't able to, but there was a lot going on that last week. So thank you for putting those events together. And then the other thing is I also joined Alderman. I believe it's Alderman. Correct me if I'm wrong, Becky. The session, Alder. Okay, sorry, Alder. For a session of an informational session for anyone that's looking into the teaching career. It's a program that you get credentialed and your master's in a 1-year program. It's really nice. There was quite a few turnout, and a lot of them were from the Salinas area. So that's good to know. Hopefully we have teachers coming in, but that is something I just wanted to put out there. If there's any substitutes listening, stuff like that are working through that, to look at that. It looks like it's a great program. 1 year and you get credentialed and your master's. That's awesome. So yeah, that's about it for me.
Sarah Turner. So I did meet with staff at LSL Middle School to talk about cell phone pouches, which was very helpful. I also talked to the Salinas Valley RIF Reading is Fundamental Board just about RIF distributions. If the public doesn't know, RIF is a nonprofit that's housed here at Santa Rita, and they provide free books to children in North Monterey County District, Santa Rita District, Salinas City Elementary District, and sometimes down into South County. For many of these children, it's the first time that they've gotten to own a book, and a book that they get to choose, not one that's chosen for them. So that's really exciting. And I also completed the online training for board members, which I found to be incredibly informative, and it was very helpful to be able to do it at my home. So thank you.
Excuse me. Yes, I attended the Fall Festival at the end of October, and over at not McKinnon, New Republic. And oh my gosh, there was so many craft booths. I spent a lot of money and it's all going to be towards for the kids anyway. So, but there were There were a lot of activities for the kids. And I was just impressed by the many booths and how organized. I guess the organization of that whole fall festival was just wonderful. And everybody enjoying themselves. I do need to say thank you to the teachers and the staff, all of the, I mean, everybody was there from the office staff to teachers. Lots of parents were there involved in supporting all the booths, and they had a lot of game booths too. And so thank you to them. And also I ran into Tommy and Gail Spencer, and of course they were up and down and here and there, and they were just really great as far as, you know, getting all the equipment together and being there with the teachers and being there and running around for whatever reason the teachers needed them to be there. So a shout out to them. And I also today, I went to observe cell phone pouches over at Hardin Middle School. I went with Melissa and with some, I was going to say my neighbor's name, but Summer. And it was interesting. I wrote down a lot, and I noted a lot of things. I went home and sat there for just a half hour and just wrote things that I observed. So, and we'll be bringing that to you guys later. That's it.
Okay, for myself, I did visit Hardin unofficially, not with the group, but just to kind of see how the morning session went with the pouches. I know we did table the item. I wanted to see what would be the process to potentially facilitate a conversation with some of the teachers in person. If maybe another board member, whoever wants to join me. I don't know how we can set that up before our next board meeting. Just
I
kind of.
spoke with Ashley Tripp. She's really open to that idea. Would love to, you know, have some trustees visit our campuses. She knows you guys are open to visiting other campuses that have them implemented. And so I can reach out and find a couple of different options for a
Okay.
time to facilitate those conversations, as well as bringing in teachers who have concerns one way or another
Sure.
about it.
Yeah. And even if we do the walkthrough, maybe also some sitting time where we just get a chance to, you know, get to know each other and understand the perspective too. So
Also, just really quick.
Yeah.
There's a really good article in this. I don't know whether you got this issue. It was in the summer. And it has cell phone bans. Very good article. Pros and cons, challenges. So it's a good read. So thank you.
You good?
that's it for me.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. Number one, you know, regarding cell phone use, I've visited a couple of sites, and I've also talked to the union president of SVFT, the largest teachers union that represents middle schools and high schools in Monterey County, as well as the CSEA president, who also represents the largest CSA union in Monterey County. And but the main impression I got that really hit home for me was lunchtime. And I see students talking to each other. I see staff creating games for students to play. What I didn't see was students staring at their screens. You know, education is one thing, but we also have to teach social skills, interpersonal skills, how to relate to one another, talk to each other. We live in a world that is divided by social media. We need to bring people together, talk to each other. We might have differences, but we still need to talk. And I think that is the essential thing that the cell phones are preventing. You know, there's proper place for all tools in life. But once again, I'm going to rely on people who have implemented it, people who are using it, and people who are benefiting from it. I've had certain people tell me, well, it's a cost factor. You can spend money on other things. Well, all the other things cost a lot of money. One mental wellness worker, you're talking 150,000 plus benefits. To what? Address 10 students, 20 students, 50 students? And here, for less than that, we can effectively provide for our entire middle schools. And so I feel very strong. And the other issue is I've talked to many teachers, and there's a lot of miscommunication going on out there. You know, our intention was not, we opened it up for a survey, and based on the survey and results, you know, we were looking at possibly middle school, not elementary schools. And yet there's a belief out there that we're going to do that there. Or that the teachers in middle schools are going to be in charge of collecting the pouches, making sure they're zipped up, making sure they're unlocked at the end. Where's this stuff coming from? And I think part of it is our responsibility as a district to make sure we provide accurate information of what is being discussed. And so people can make decisions based on actual real data and facts, not supposition and presumptions, not based on fact or real life events. Having said that, the other issue I've been dealing with is whether you voted for one person or another, you know, that is your right. But what I'm seeing and hearing is a lot of hatred, especially with fear amongst our communities. And that has to stop. That has to stop. There is no room for this divisiveness and hatred, especially based on immigration lines. So I think we need to tone it down a little bit. And with students texting each other, using the very same cell phones to bully others. So I think, you know, we have a lot of work to do. I'm open to ideas. I'm open to listening to our union, SRTA, and the CSEA here. And that's why we tabled the motion. And, you know, it is what it is. But once again, you know, we need to be a little bit more understanding and a little bit more open. And look at real data, look at real facts, talk to people who are really in the middle of things, so we can make better decisions. Having said that, I'm very pleased with Fall Festival. I couldn't stay as long as I could, but every year that PTA and that school, they always rise. Always rise. So I just want to hopefully we're more inclusive in the future, and maybe we can get other sites to combine or have a district-wide type of fall festival. That would be my hope. Having said that, thank you very much.
Can I just,
Sure, Elva.
I just wanted to clarify, when you said misinformation. The elementary school teachers don't believe that they're going to have the cell phone pouches in their schools. I think that the elementary school teachers are just, they feel that it's going to be so much money to get this implemented that they would like to have, there's things that are missing in the elementary school teachers. And I'm just saying it from myself, when I was a teacher, there were a lot of, I just spent a lot of money out of my own pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can understand how the elementary school teachers feel that with so much money, we can have other things for kids in the elementary and the whole district. So I just want to make that clarification, that it's not that they were going to implement the cell phone pouches there. So, and just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I did specifically have elementary teachers tell me they thought that they was going to be implemented in the elementary district, elementary schools. So I think both things can be true at the same time.
Yes.
Both things can be true. That's it. Any other comments? Are we good? Superintendent?
I have two things. Received a note that I need to remind everyone that we have our winter coat drive going Right now, Blanca Valverde is doing an amazing job, but putting it out there, we're collecting new coats for our students. So you can drop them by at one of our school sites or at our district office and any size is welcome for our students for the annual coat drive. I also want to thank Dr. Prather Smith. She was instrumental in arranging an event that we hosted yesterday. We had some of our neighboring districts come in for the training, school behavioral threat assessment training administered with the Secret Service. Really, really informative and interesting. All of our site principals attended the full day training. Again, some of our neighboring smaller districts. It was done in partnership with the Small District Association, and then our partners at Kimball and Associates helped host that. And so it was a really informative day. It was great going through some case studies and scenarios and using our own behavior threat analysis tool as a model. So it was really great. Appreciate that.
We're going to move forward with 7.1, public comment on non-agendized item. Do we have any public comments on non-agendized items?
We do not.
All right, we're going to move forward with 7.2, public comment on agendized items. Do we have comments?
Thank you. We did receive email public comments, 6 of those on our original item 9.5, which the board voted to table for this evening's meeting. That was on the cell phone pouches, and those have been forwarded to trustees and myself. And if there's any other issues, we'll forward those to the appropriate staff to address those. We also have some cards and requests to address the board on our item 9.1. I know some people wrote 9.2, but it's 9.1. And we'll go through those, but I want to remind everyone, I know we have a lot of speakers tonight. We have a 2-minute limit per speaker and 20 minutes on a topic. So always you're encouraged, if your comments are substantially the same as someone else's and you wanted to just say, I'm here representing this many other people with the same comment so that we're not duplicating the same comment. With that said, if you're ready, I can go ahead. There'll be a timer here. And that will start whenever you begin speaking up at the podium and the microphone. So we're going in order of submission. We start with Mr. Rod Smalley.
Got the green button for you. My name is Rod Smalley. I'm with Operating Engineers Local 3. I hope you all are doing well and happy holidays that are coming up. But let's get down to the nitty gritty. You got hopefully a PLA coming your way. That's members from your community working here. That's members of our community that are voting for the things that you're asking for. That's members of our community who want to see our kids have a better education. You talked about the music program. That is awesome. But if they ain't got somewhere where they can learn, where it's safe to learn, we're doing our kids injustice. I don't know how to say it any more clear. We hope you vote that way. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Kevin Dayton.
Kevin Dayton, Government Affairs Director for Salinas Valley Chamber of Commerce. You saw the letter I had sent earlier today. I see that this board is quite astute and very disappointing. I will probably report back to the Chamber of Commerce that I think it's likely that you discussed this issue, directed negotiations on it, probably provided terms and conditions of the agreement, and did all this with no reference for an agenda item, no reference in the minutes. And this is basically a pop-up project labor agreement. All of a sudden, you've got a fully negotiated project labor agreement here you're voting on. There are people in the community who are not members of a union too, who work in construction companies. And some of these construction companies are local and they will be working here. And now you are going to require them for any project over $400,000. You, company and your workers, you're going to be union now because this is a union district. I'm sure some of the people who voted for your measure are about 4,000 people voted in total. They are people who probably work in construction who aren't in unions. Here's what I would like you to do in the chamber, and we discussed this today at our Government Relations Committee meeting. Delay a vote on this for a couple of weeks so you can actually hear some perspectives on this. That $4,000 threshold, how did that come about? When these project labor agreements were coming into vogue 20 years ago, it was for things like airports. Now you're talking about 400,000. That's just a jobs grab, actually. You need to talk to people in the community who are construction company owners. You need to talk to the Central Coast Builders Exchange and other construction associations. There's a lot more to the construction industry than just the building trades union. And yes, they got here and I congratulate them. They did a great job on this because nobody knew about it until really it was too late. And it's not their fault. That's their job, is to, get work. But you as a school board need to do a better job on this. Pay attention to the public and serve them.
Next, we have Steve MacArthur.
Evening, board members. My name's Steve MacArthur. I actually represent the plumbers and steam fitters for Monterey, Santa Cruz County. I'm also a former alumni of La Jolla Elementary School, by the way. I'm actually here in support of this PLA. I think it's a great thing. That said, I would think the Chamber of Commerce would probably be happy that most of the jobs associated with the construction of these new classrooms is all being subbed out to modular construction. So pretty much not very many members in this room are actually going to get a job out of any of this new construction because it's all, including plumbers, has been subbed out somewhere else, bought somewhere else. I'm a little disappointed that all those jobs have been, that I and my members who live in this area paying for it will not be getting. None of those contractors, the last person mentioned, will be working on it either. So to his point, none of those jobs will be here. So disappointed with that, but for the few jobs that will be left, definitely a PLA will help those people that actually live here get a job. Thank you.
And just a note, if I mispronounce anyone's name, I apologize. Next up, I have Digger Gugale.
Jacob's going to speak, but at the same time, they're going to speak together as a group as apprentices.
Got it.
Hi guys, how are you? I'm just want to say I'm in here in favor of the PLA. I mean, we are union members. We do safe, quality work. I live in this community and I want to see the community thrive. Things that he's saying don't really make sense. Our union provides safe workers, safe training, schooling. Now we offer an AA, so that, I mean, you guys know what that means for us. So, I mean, I'm sure the people that he brings can't do this. We get trained in OSHA, so we all have OSHA cards in the apprenticeship, so everything is done safely. And so that's what this is, 30 hours of nonstop safety training, so we can come on your campuses and do work safely, cleanly, and efficiently. So this will help us out a lot, and we just want to say thank you for having us tonight.
Okay, next we have Jose Rivera.
Good evening, everybody. As you know, my colleagues will represent members. I got many people who lives here and has to commute to the San Jose, Santa Clara, San Francisco, because the local companies here cheat, don't pay right, wage theft. The only way for them to provide to their family and to their kids that they come to this school district is to commute 2-3 hours every day, back and forth, to be able to provide. A PLA doesn't forbid any company to do the job. It ensures for them to pay any worker the right amount, especially the immigrants, because I come across many people like me that they be misclassified, they take advantage, they've been attacked. And they said, if you complain, I call immigration. So to me, that's very unfair because they're providing a job. They're working hard as anybody else to provide for their families. So PLA is the path to protect those workers, regardless of ethnicity, immigration status, or who they're working for as well. Is the path for you guys, if you guys need us here to do a presentation for the kids, because I will say college is not for everybody. I'm one of them, right? I can afford it. My family wasn't affording it. But guess what? It's another path to have a better life, a better pay with the medical benefits, which is very expensive, as where everybody know, for their families and dependents. Thank you for your time. And that should help you guys vote yes on a PLA. Thank you.
Jacob Bernays. Got it. Abraham Castor.
Got it.
Got it. Daniel Rubio.
Hi, my name is Danny Rubio. I'm here to speak on support of the PLA. I live in this community. I live off of Tudor Way, off of Veranda. So my kids went to school, New Republic, Gavilan, Poconos. My youngest was one of the first ones to graduate from San Juan. So I live in this community. I pay property taxes into the Santa Rita School Union District. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I wouldn't be able to do any of this if it wasn't for the union. My apprenticeship program that I started 20 years ago. I couldn't afford to go to college, and this apprenticeship provided my family, me, and my kids an opportunity to, live in this community. And I think Santa Rita School District is one of the best districts in Austin, to be honest with you. Another thing I wanted to talk about was we have 88. So I'm part of the Sheet Metal Workers Local 104 in Castroville. Our training center is in Castroville. We have 88 apprentices currently applying for our program. And with the help of you guys, PLA, we can put these kids to work. Some of them, there's men, women that are applying, both women and men. And some of these are also veterans looking for an opportunity to an apprenticeship because, like I said, graduating out of high school, some can't go to college or don't want to go to college. This is another opportunity for them to, to earn a better living. And through our state certified apprenticeship program, once you're done with their apprenticeship, they do earn an AA. So if they do, because we're credit through Full Hill College. So if they want to continue their education, they can very well do so through our apprenticeship program. So I hope you guys consider this PLA. Thanks.
Next, we have Casey Vandenhuel. Did I say that correctly?
I've been dealing with that my whole life, and that's a lot closer than most. Good evening, night board. My name is Casey Van Hoovel. I am the president of the Monterey Santa Cruz Building Trades Council. I am also a VP for the Central Labor Council, and I also sit on your Monterey County Workforce Development Board. And I say that because apprenticeship programs are at my heart. And per prevailing wage, each classification has to have 20% of those hours being done by a state certified apprenticeship, right? And being able to provide those opportunities for this community is key. We want to make sure that these apprentices are being trained correct, being provided the OSHA safety training, and then being also being provided an AA degree through our program. This PLA is going to guarantee access for these workers in this community. When a worker is not paid correctly on a prevailing wage job, or does not have retirement benefits, or does not have healthcare benefits, who pays for that? The taxpayer. So when that worker shows up at the ER and doesn't have healthcare, who pays for it? The taxpayer. When that worker shows up on a prevailing wage job, hopefully he's getting paid correctly. Who pays for that? The taxpayer. When that worker turns 65 and realizes that they're not going to be able to live off Social Security because they didn't have a proper retirement, who pays for those social programs? The taxpayer. So now you've paid for that worker 3 different times. Let's pay for these workers correctly the first time.
Let's provide training opportunities for this community. And let's bring together what is so important in a school district. And that is training, and is education, and that is opportunity. And this is what this PLA is going to be provide for this community, opportunity that it hasn't had. And I appreciate you guys being on the forefront. I am here to say you are doing a great job. I am not going to stand up here and say what you're not doing. So I appreciate you, and I look forward to this vote. Have a good night.
And the last card that I have is for Manny Pinero.
Good evening, worthy board members, superintendent, your staff, your teachers here, ladies and gentlemen, the public. Thank you for the opportunity to come speak. I'm the CEO of the Monterey Santa Cruz County Building Construction Trades Council. In education, I was thrilled to hear about the music program. But one program that we lack is industrial arts in our schools, and we hope to bring that back in the future. Not every kid's going to go out there and do a 2, 4, 6, or 8-year degree. The opportunity of having this PLA ensures you with an accredited apprenticeship, as said previously. It is crucial that you pass this PLA, keep the work in the community, great wages, great union wages, great benefits, and get to retire in dignity. I'm a retired operating engineer. I've been retired this February 8 years. I got to retire at 55. So that still gives you enough time to do things. You can retire in dignity. So please take in consideration this PLA. We thank you for your time and your work. Have a nice evening.
Alrighty then. Thank you everyone for coming and sharing your comments. All right, I will entertain enter discussion if you like before we potentially vote on it. So I'd like to start. Go ahead.
Sure. I had a question. I know our attorney's here. One of the comments that was made that only union contractors be able to bid for some of these projects. Can you clarify if that's correct or how that process would work?
A contractor has to agree to be bound by the terms of the PLA.
Okay, so it could potentially be a union contractor or a non-union contract as long as they applied for the.
That's correct. Any contractor will still be able to bid on the project.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify it. And we did receive the whole board lots of emails today, for and against. Just so you know, I do take the time to read all the studies. I'm one of those people who actually read all the paperwork for and against. I read all the studies and the comparisons and stuff. One of the things I kind of looked at is a lot of times there's at least from the studies that I found, is there's a misconception or a thing that says that PLA costs government entities more money, right? And a lot of times what happens is studies a lot of times get skewed. So a couple of studies that I read that were kind of against it, a lot of times they're comparing two different projects going on to different cities, sometimes within the same city, but a different design focus. The timing obviously could be different. I know oftentimes even when I built my house from ground up, construction costs go up, materials change. There's a whole lot of factors that kind of change. One of the big things that I've noticed in some of the studies that I've read is the skilled labor that kind of goes into oftentimes the PLA or apprenticeships. And through that skilled labor, you get oftentimes a higher quality of work. Not across the board, you get some really skilled people, but just like with education, when there's extra training that kind of takes place, the bar is kind of raised. The other thing that I've noticed that oftentimes happens is it impacts our students in education is people being able to live in the community they work in, right? Oftentimes when people get misclassified or the labor is not there, that impacts the children, because if there's money issues at home with that kind of stuff, that also impacts the services that we provide, that there's extra cost burden. That's kind of not factored in some of the stuff that kind of gets done. A lot of times people do drive long distances, and a lot of times that kind of creates extra layers of traffic in the different directions that kind of things have moved around. So we first brought this up as a discussion 2 years ago, right? And part of the reason why is because this is a huge step, not only for our district, but for our area. So I wanted to make sure that I did enough research and was very thorough in whatever decision I was going to make as a board member individually, right? And I think that's I'm glad we didn't necessarily rush into any type of movement and stuff. And that's kind of the reason why I felt it took a long time. So one of the biggest things, I did talk to a lot of contractors who are non-union, and I've asked them, hey, have you worked with the PLA before? How does that kind of work? Latino-owned businesses. And he said, yeah, I've done PLAs before. You know, you just make sure you follow what's in the PLA. You know, if you need some workers, you go to the union hall and you finish the project, right? So in talking to that, I kind of wanted to talk to somebody who was non-union to kind of understand, like, how do you work through this? Because you know, that's obviously impacts the amount of people that might bid for a project. So I wanted to see, hey, would that discourage somebody who's non-union not to want to move forward? And I found out that's not the case. Now, of course, you're going to have people that obviously are going to get discouraged, right? But at the end of the day, I felt like the benefits of what a PLA would bring to our district was positive, and that's kind of the reason, the direction that I'm going with. So,
All right, Cindy, any comments?
No comments.
Sarah, any comments?
I just appreciated and wanted to make the public aware, as Jacob said, this is something that we've agendized, 2 years ago and had very public conversations. All of our board meetings are available online at the time, or you could tape and watch them later. So we certainly want the public to be aware of what we're doing at all times.
Elva?
I just want to say that this isn't something that just came up. Like Jacob and Sarah have said, this has been 2 years in the making here. So I think we've done our research really, really good. So that's it.
All right. Mr. Sandoval, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think this is a difficult decision, no matter which way we go with it. And the reason is, we want to make sure that as future buildings, future construction happens, that people are provided for in a rightful way. It shouldn't be a race to the bottom. It should be a race to the top. And unfortunately, if I cannot make sure that the workers on our sites are provided the more basic necessities like health insurance, retirement, and we're offering them wages, am I really doing right? And over the last 50 years, there's a direct correlation. If you look at union membership and real wage growth, and they both are in tandem. Unions have been decimated over the last 50 years. And then when you look at real wage growth, it has as well. And so for me, it's about a quality of life issue as well. My fellow residents of Salinas. And so, I personally am going to be supporting this. I've been a union member for over 24 years. I think this country did best when unions had more of a role to play. What we have seen over the last 50 years is a decimation of pensions, health benefits, worker protections, and at the cost of one thing, and that is the bottom line. I often say, follow the money. When everything is said and done, follow the money. Who got paid what? Was it the workers who got the vast share? Was it the executives, corporate owners? Who actually benefited? And how do I justify that? Knowing we had a role to play. So given all these considerations and considering that, like Jacob said, this is open to everyone. If you can meet the standards, meet them. But we're not going to fight to the bottom. We're going to lift each other up. And so that's my perspective. I believe in business. I believe in capitalism. But unfettered capitalism, unfettered business can also lead to a negative situation in the long term. It has to be balanced. And so for me, you know, we have cost constraints. Yes, we're going modular, and yes, not all unions are going to be happy. It's a tough decision. But having said that, I think in my heart that this is the best decision I can make. And by the way, I'm a high school teacher. I believe in apprentice programs. I believe in a future for my students who are not going to go to college. I want them to have an opportunity in life and live a well life where they can afford a standard of living which has been taken away for generations. So with the future in mind, that is my position. Having said that, any more comments?
Just the last one, because I know this question got asked to me quite a bit, is if it's a PLA or non-PLA, it's prevailing wage. So I think that's a lot of times there's a confusion. A lot of people ask me like, hey, if you do PLA, that means you're going to spend more money on wages. It's not. It's PLA, no PLA. There's laws that say it's a prevailing wage, you know, regardless of what that is. So that rate doesn't pay. It has to do more with classification and other stuff. So with that, if there's no comment, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
We need to get to the agenda
Sorry.
item.
Sorry. Oh.
All right.
So we shouldn't have had discussion. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. That's okay. Yeah, this one wants to die.
We moved item 9.1 up to be heard before our informational items 8.1. Are you ready for me to present that item?
Okay, go ahead.
Bringing forward 9.1, approval of project stabilization agreement and side letter with Monterey and Santa Cruz County counties Building and Construction Trades Council. I appreciate the members of the Monterey and Santa Cruz Counties Building and Construction Trades Council who took part in we're at the 2-year mark on negotiating a PLA. And the willingness to keep engaging in the process and finding the compromises for our side and yours that led to us bringing forward a PLA.
All right,
Is there anything else?
Any other
Is there anything else
comments?
from our attorney before we? No. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Captain.
Motion 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Guys, now I'm gonna ask a big favor. Can we take a photo together?
Not photos.
All right, let's get it going. All right, come on outside. With the flag. Yeah, with the flag. Come on. Everybody get up here. I have to get up. You have to get up. Hey, thanks for looking at it. Well, thank you guys. We're here. I feel a lot better than mine. All right.
You guys gotta.
We'll scoot over this way. You're standing in front of me, Daniel. You stand behind me because you're taller.
It's awesome.
We're gonna
make sure everybody's smiling. You are more awesome than me. You guys see it in just. Ready, 1, 2. Don't, I'm gonna go this way, just try to get. No, I'll answer that for you. You guys have to sign upside down, though. You guys do that? Yeah, you did.
No.
Yeah, you did.
We're great happy. It's all, no friendship. That's
You're a TV hawk, thank you.
That's awesome.
Well,
me too. Thank you. Back over here. We appreciate you so much.
Did I put a target on my back?
Time to celebrate with a bag of chips.
Just like you fight for those education.
I was surprised that there weren't too many. There was just only one.
I know.
Our mic's on.
I was thinking that there was gonna be a lot more on the other side.
My goal is about 250, 275. I just did 60.
Wow. I really was, that surprised me. That surprised me. I thought there was.
Alrighty then, everybody. I think we have a lot more items here. Okay, I would like to move on to 8.1, information item literacy coaching, reading specialist educational training plan.
Thank you. Can you bring up our presentation, please? Oh, and I have some to hand out there. Summer, if you don't mind passing them down. Thank you. That's it. Thank you. And so we are proud to present the LCR set plan for Santa Rita Elementary School. And I'll start by introducing the program to you. If you could change the slide for me. Thank you. So this grant is provided by CDE, perfect, to schools that have high need for student performance. And the goal is not only to provide materials, but to set up a system of sustainability for literacy instruction so that all of our students are reading by 3rd grade. Next slide. And it's all based on this view of reading, which really is the science of reading that a lot of our teachers have been trained in. So understanding that there are 2 parts of reading. One of those is the decoding and phonics and phonemic awareness so that students can sound words out and be able to produce the language. But in addition to that, we need to make sure that students can understand what they're reading through background knowledge, vocabulary, and comprehension. And so this focuses on all of those things and training our teachers in teaching them, as well as providing the supports that students need to access the materials. So let's go to the next slide. And so within our control at the base, you see that there are these 4 pillars: comprehensive assessment, cohesive curriculum, system capacity building, which is what we're really trying to focus on, and support, which comes with our coaching. And all of those provide us the opportunity to provide a solid reading program to all students with differentiated instruction for students who need more support, and dedicated instructional time to literacy. And if you go to the next slide, I'm not going to read all of this to you, but in this grant, we had an opportunity to hire a literacy coach or hire a reading specialist. And the difference between those 2 roles is that a reading specialist works with students, a literacy coach works with teachers. And in the vein of wanting to provide a sustainable system, we knew that the teacher training is really what will get us there, because we may not always be able to have supplemental positions like a reading specialist. But if we train teachers to carry on the good work, then they're going to be able to sustain solid instruction for our students in literacy. So our team initially was comprised of our Santa Rita principal, Donna, our assistant principal, Jeanette. She started in the spring while she was still a teacher and transitioning into the assistant principal role. Patricia, our academic coach at Santa Rita. And then once we hired Christina as our literacy coach, she jumped right on board with us. We also have been working closely with our 2 EL specialists at Santa Rita, Courtney and Michelle. And so I got to be a big part of the beginning of this, and then they have taken the reins. And so they are really driving the work at Santa Rita, and they're going to tell you about all the great things that they're doing.
Thank you, Becky. Good evening, everybody. I just have to say this is an amazing team, and I really appreciate all the work they're doing. In the spring, as Becky mentioned, we're meeting regularly regarding the grant. We did a root cause analysis, which came about was our problem statement of too few students are able to read and comprehend complex grade level text. So that was our problem statement. We then, through our root cause analysis and needs assessment, came up with 3 priorities. Priority 1 and 2 from our root cause analysis, that we don't have consistent assessment process, including a universal screener, and our PLC teams are not focused on data analysis. I'm going to tell you, they're doing so much better right now. It's already evident. So those were the 2 priorities. And then the next slide, please. Through the needs assessment, we came up with our 3rd priority, that we realized there are no formal assessment systems for literacy, including a universal screener. So this is something that we can do in parallel with our other 2 high leverage opportunities. From these root cause analysis and our needs assessments, and really looking at it at a deeper level, we then created 2 SMARTY goals. The E on SMARTY goals includes the equitable piece. So we just wanted to highlight that's the new SMART goal, is making sure it's equitable across the lenses of all. And to introduce our SMARTY goals, I'm going to introduce Ms. Jeanette Zavala and then Patricia Zuniga.
Next slide. Next slide, please. So our first goal that we decided on as a team was that we will improve in consistent implementation of Tier 1 instruction by following the scope and sequence plan and analyze data in PLC Plus teams as measured by increased student performance on data reports and observations. So this is through doing some PLC observations, doing learning walks, and peer coach support by May of 2025.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Goal 2, we will improve in consistent instruction of foundational skills in 100% of K through 3rd grade classrooms by implementing an explicit systematic foundational skills program with fidelity as measured by increased student performance on data reports and observations, such as PLC Plus meetings, learning walks, and peer coach support by May of 2025.
Good evening. It's good to be here. I have to remind myself that it's only been a couple months and so much has already happened, but thrilled to join the team. And some of the things that we've already accomplished so far is that we do have our universal screening assessments in place. And I believe we just completed or in the middle of completing our 2nd round. We have phonemic awareness and phonics instruction occurring regularly in class, and that's also with supporting of the new materials that we have acquired, Haggerty, UFly, to support specifically explicit instruction in phonemic awareness and phonics. We have a protected time or protected hour for ELD and literacy instruction, integrity hour where there are minimal disruptions to the classroom so that learning can take place. We have a structured Tier 2 interventions with our paraprofessionals who have been trained in some of the materials. Coaching cycles have begun and they will continue to support teachers in their learning and their growth in the both curriculum and in best practices in the classroom. All teachers have been trained in our English 3D, which is our new English development program. That is the curricula that was designed by one of the lead specialists in English language development. And then we also had our literacy night a few weeks ago where families were welcomed onto site. They got to experience in multiple classrooms read alouds and activities that they could take home with them so that they can continue the learning at home. And so we will have another literacy night coming in the spring. And we have some feedback from families as well that we're going to take into consideration. And then we're also doing learning walks, focusing specifically on literacy, what's going on in the classroom, what are some patterns that we can look at to determine our next steps in professional growth.
So we have the Let's Read campaign going on, as you can tell by our shirts. We forgot to tell you. So literacy night was our Let's Read literacy night, where one of our classrooms actually was a camping theme. We have our decodables there. popcorning around to answer questions. Our student was catching the beach ball, and our ELD teachers are phenomenal at engaging those students in learning without even realizing how much they're learning, and they're just having fun while they're participating in their ELD class. And this is our Santa Rita Let's Read family. So everybody got a shirt. And that was our first Friday that we took that photo, and really our staff has taken off, and they remind us, please don't interrupt integrity hour. Please remind the office not to call during integrity hour. So they are prideful, and they come up to me. I read 6 books, Miss K. I read 7 books. And a couple first graders, a teacher came up to me and said, I really thought that little Jesus was going to have some struggles in kindergarten, but he's really taken off, and look at his middle of the year scores. So it's really exciting to see the excitement coming out of both the teachers and the students. And so we're really proud of our Santa Rita readers and our staff. I'm going to pass it back to Christina.
So our last slide here is, we're going through a process on site, kind of a timeline where we're going to reconnect with our values and the why of why we work at Santa Rita and what we want to see in the future for our students. And so we did an exercise that helped us all to determine what our own values were. And we started off with the question, if you could solve any problem in the world, any problem, what could it be? And then getting a list of values and saying, okay, if you are the type of person to solve this problem, or if your students were the type of people who could solve this problem, what would be the values that they needed or the skills that they needed in order to solve that problem? So it was a time of self-reflection by teachers. And then we took a look at those values that they identified and then how they connected to our site vision. So uniting us in our values and in the work. And we came together at the end and came up with this cloud. So these are all the values represented at Santa Rita. And the 3 main values that just kind of sends a chill in my, not chill, but thrill. There you go. Service, compassion, and grace. And if we could instill that in our students, what a world this would be.
And I would like to conclude by saying that I'm really proud of the work that's happening at Santa Rita. I'm spending a lot of time there, not as much as I hoped and during the summer, but I am getting into classrooms with the team pretty regularly, and they're sharing their ideas with me, and I'm thrilled for what the future holds for Santa Rita Elementary School. The full LCR set plan was attached to your board docs. I didn't want to print out the whole thing because it's kind of boring. This was really the highlights out of that plan. So thank you. Are there any comments or questions?
Board members, go ahead. Starting from the left, is that all right, Cindy?
Yeah, thank you guys. I mean, I went to Santa Rita and I vividly remember not meeting those reading expectations. My mom going out and purchasing phonics, and it was awesome because I thought it was a game, right? And I would play on the computer and whatnot, to be able to learn and put these 2 words together, and it makes this sound and whatnot. My child went to Santa Rita. I saw the need when she was there. I've had parents reached out saying like, hey, there's no support for, kids that are younger, like my child's not meeting expectations. So to see that you guys are doing this and bringing it to our district, but especially one of our schools that is so much in need, that school is in so much need because we see a lot of our children that, the families speak a different language, whatnot. It's needed so highly. And it just brings me joy to know that we're doing this, that the kids are engaged, because that's one of the biggest things. If the kids are not engaged, they're not going to learn. I remember reading and then, okay, what did you read? I was like, I don't know what I read, and I would have to go back and read it again. And, so it's so awesome to know that you guys are putting all of these things in practice to make sure that the kids are engaged, that the kids are learning, that they're enjoying, and to be able to see our scores go up and see that the children are actually learning, not just, oh, they think it's a game, but they're learning in the time being. So just thank you guys so much for putting this together. I'm really pleased, and just know that I'm pretty sure my fellow board members feel the same. We are 100% backing you guys up with this, and hopefully whatever you guys need, we could help you guys out. Thank you.
I'm really excited for this. As many of you guys know, I'm the rep from District 1, and District 1 is, of course, the best district, you know, in Santa Cruz. But I have, as an elementary teacher, I have a bunch of technical questions, and I don't need real technical answers. I can take one sentence, and then you guys can give me more information later. My first question is, how are you connecting what you're doing in the classroom with what's happening with extended learning after school and Saturdays?
So Madonna, who is coordinating our ELOP, has reached out to me, kind of asking what are the things that we're doing so that they're not overlapping, but doing something different to enhance and enrich.
And then what's happening with LTELs, the long-term English learners, like 4th, 5th graders?
Okay. So we have identified our LTELs. In elementary, we don't have that many. We have like maybe 10. But we do have kids that are in their 4th or 5th year of being an English learner. So they're at risk of becoming an LTEL. We're very lucky. We have 2 EL specialists plus the grade level teachers. So they're able to group the kids by language proficiency level, and they're really small groups, which is phenomenal.
And this is a related question. The answer is probably the same. What are you doing with newcomers?
So in the past several years, I would say 3 to 4 years, our newcomer population has quadrupled. I remember when we had 6 newcomers in a year, and that happened for several years. And then I remember the first family with Mixteco background that attended, and that was in January. And then in March, we had 10 families, and it's just grown so much more. So we have newcomer classes. Right now, the state, well, previously the state had identified students to be newcomers if they were 12 months or less. Recently, there's been discussion of extending that time to 36 months. So I don't know if the state testing has caught up with that or not. That's still in development. But yes, we do have newcomer classes. And then it's not just for the students who are 0 to 12 months. We do pay attention to students who are 12 to 24 months, especially if they're older, because there's a bigger gap.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Hi, good evening. So, you mentioned your thrill and the chill and all that, but your thrill is my chill because I really like what's going on. I really like the part where you were going into really deep discussions on the root cause analysis summary. And that to me is one of the first steps in getting this whole team. First of all, the team is a great team. I think it's one of, you have some, including your principal and your vice principal. But I just feel that I like the needs assessment summary where you mentioned it was equitable. That really, it just caught my attention. And it looks like you are all doing a great job and really diving into getting the kids to reading. And I'm just thrilled. I really am. And so I'd like to see at the end of the year how this all comes about. Good luck. Good luck. And I know that you guys are going to do a great job and you're going to have some really good outcomes. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. A couple things just for the public. I know there were some terms that Sarah had mentioned. Can you tell us what a newcomer is? And also, what was the other term that you used, Sarah?
I use the term LTEL, which stands for Long-Term English Learner. The federal government requires all schools to test children who speak a language other than English every year and to monitor their proficiency. And the idea is that you get reclassified as English fluent, and then you don't have to take that exam anymore. And the idea is that your English is at grade level and your math and reading skills are all at grade level. Sometimes children get trapped where they don't move forward and they don't seem to make progress on the tests. And that really can, one, they can struggle in the classroom, but two, it ends up holding them back in terms of middle school or high school, being able to choose electives or other things that they would like to do. So we don't want any of our students to become LTELs. And then also a newcomer would be a child who just recently moved from another country. Some of those children have had extensive schooling in their home country and just need language help. Some of those children have never gone to school before, so that they could be entering and that you're not only learning English, but you've not had any access to school before. So this is my job. And so I'm always wanting us to take care of our most needy populations.
Okay, thank you. The other thing is I do appreciate, as much as obviously this is a concerning thing, but I think it's the other get to the root cause. Like, too few of our students are able to read and comprehend complex grade level text. I mean, it's a sad stain, but I think it's also like we need to start from somewhere. So I know we've had conversations with Superintendent, like we rather know if there is an issue, even as bad as like, hey, we haven't done as great as we could have in the past, but that's okay. Like, we need to have that starting point. So I do appreciate the intentionality of a lot of stuff that you're doing, especially like the integrity hour, I think you guys call it. I think that's a super awesome concept, because I think oftentimes in the past, whenever I'd watch, school boards presentation, I just said our district, but in district in general, like there's a plan and something's kind of done, but you kind of go through the motions of it, regardless of being more intentional about it. Right. So I do appreciate and it's exciting to see, especially Santa Rita, as Cindy mentioned, is a school that I attended as well. And my brother Andrew also attended Santa Rita School. So it's always a special place in my heart, even though I live in the La Jolla area now. So I do appreciate the intentionality of the direction you're going with stuff. I hope that kind of continues in everything we do in the district. It's like, a lot of these students are going to be the future adults, future workforce, future everything that it is. And so that extra investment we can do now, to help them succeed is also going to impact our community in the future, even though at times we can't see that far ahead. So thank you.
First of all, thank you very, very much. I'm glad our district is taking this initiative and we have a great team that's going to lead us through this. Reading is essential no matter what, and the earlier we can tackle it, the earlier we can get up to reading level, fluency, the better. The problem is always confounded by socioeconomics and as well as events like COVID, etc., But what I really liked about this was the Scarborough's reading rope. I like the idea because we're implementing that in my school. So similarly, there's not called Scarborough, but we have background information, have language structure, have vocab, Students don't necessarily come in with the same amount of knowledge, understanding, background, whatever it may be, and we expect them to just read. So people think reading is just an easy thing to do. Unfortunately, it is not. All studies show that. So I'm loving the comprehensive nature, but the one thing I really appreciated was the staff buy-in. It only works when the entire school is focused on it. As an example, and I hate using my own examples, but this last 2-3 years, in high school, we've noticed our ninth graders coming in way below reading level, you know? And so we had to take a step of, you know, looking at all of our instruction, English, math, science, incorporating language acquisition. But even for me as an avid teacher, I now changed my entire curriculum. Half of it, half of my period is dedicated to reading, writing, and speech. You know, and the reason is you have to catch up. You know, you got to have a dedicated site with dedicated team and a complete buy-in with a structured process. So that's what I'm hearing here. So I'm looking forward to the results, you know, that fellow board members have said, but I feel confident. We have a good team. We have a good site. We have a good program. Now let's see the execution. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, all of you. We appreciate it.
Thank you once again. All right, we're gonna keep moving on. 8.2, information item, construction delivery methods.
Thank you. We have Ariel Percival here. She's an associate with Lozano Smith. She does a lot of our guidance on school construction and those pieces. And we requested a presentation on construction delivery methods. We had talked previously about leaseback as an option and did the resolution allowing that as a possibility. And so this is just sort of our overview of the different delivery methods and a chance to ask any clarifying questions.
If it's green. Great, green. All right. Good evening, trustees, Dr. Alderman, Executive Cabinet. Thank you for having me. Like she said, I am here to talk about the exciting topic of construction delivery methods and kind of what is, oh, thank you very much. The kind of common for that is utilized by school districts. This is not a comprehensive world. And some of these requirements may be a little different than what you're seeing, especially when we talk about design build, what you see out there in the private sector. So just keep that in mind, is that there might be some additional requirements that maybe not familiar with from being in real life. Next slide. Actually, we can probably go to, that's me. So the four things we're going to talk about today is design bid build, design build. Then we're going to finish with leaseback, because that kind of talks about when we go into the pre-qualification and best value scoring and selection method. Next slide. So, and then within that, we have a series of different variations within design bid build. You'll have single prime, you'll have multi-prime. Within leaseback, we have two methods, awarding via lump sum or a percentage fee. And then for design build, we have what's called standard and alternative. We will get into what all those terms mean. They are not just gibberish that I made up, I promise. Okay, design bid build. So this is going to be the traditional kind of hard bid method that most are used to. It's going to, the arc of how it goes out to bid, it's probably you're familiar with. The district will retain an architect. They'll do the full design, submit to the Division of State Architect, DSA. DSA approves it, and then the district advertises to bid and only awards that bid based on the low bidder who is responsive and responsible. The district has, so there's two different thresholds for when you have to do competitive bidding. The district has chosen to adopt the Uniform Construction Cost Accounting Act, which offers kind of a heightened threshold for competitive bidding. So currently those thresholds are at 60,000 is you can do that by negotiated contract. You do not have to bid. Now, that's to say, this is just a bidding requirement. All the other requirements that apply to a public works would still apply. So you're still paying prevailing wage, you're still registering with the DIR. The only thing that UPCA or CUPCA changes is the threshold for competitive bidding. And then between 60,000 and 200,000, there's what's called informal bidding. This is on your list of kind of contractors that you submit, that you advertise to, and they can respond. And then over 200,000 is formal bidding, and that's just the standard traditional hard bid. These thresholds are going to raise effective January 1, 2025. It's going to go up to 75,000 for the informal, and then 220,000 for the formal. So everything between 75 and 220 is going to be your informal bidding. Right. So next slide. So why design, bid, build? And again, this is based on kind of just feedback we've received from other school district clients, other public agencies. Some of these you may see, you may agree that this is a pro, you may, or a con, you may not. But one thing that hard bid offers is maximum competition. It is the lowest price. So you are going to have, people are going to be aggressive in how they submit their bids. And additionally, the contractor is because they're submitting award based on that low price, that is the value they're locked into, versus when we talk about down the line, when we talk about lease back or design build, you're going to see some options for doing like a percentage type. That is not the case here. There is no statutory skilled and trained workforce requirements, which again, some of the other delivery methods would have, regardless of the board's recent adoption of the PLA. But the project labor agreement is going to apply for all projects greater than 400,000. And that's true no matter what construction delivery method you use. So whether the district's going to hard bid, design build, or lease back, that's going to be the threshold where the PLA applies. And then you're only going to pre-qualify when projects are estimated to exceed $1 million and state money is used, so state funds, that's generally even if you're anticipating seeking state reimbursement. So it's always that's one box to check, is because the district's over 2,500 ADA, it's pre-qualification for over $1 million. And then limits the appearance of bias or favoritism, because again, you're just really looking at response, or you're looking at price, responsive, responsibility. And then the project, you can choose to use a project manager. Sometimes that's through the architect, sometimes that's a separate firm, and they can perform constructability review. Okay, why not design, bid, build? Well, it offers a little bit of flexibility in what you can consider when awarding a contract. So like we said, you can only consider price, and then whether that bid is responsive and whether that contractor is responsible. So you are limited to either reject all the bids if something comes in and it's not what the board's expectation is, or to go with the low bidder. So there's a little less flexibility there in what you can do. And then there's no opportunity for pre-bid constructability review or value engineering. That is because in a sense of where you're not having this contractor retained, a contractor could perform some value engineering on their own, and that's how they're going to submit their bid, but it's not kind of an expectation of the contract. And then it's always possible, and I will say this is across the board, is that a contractor could aggressively seek change orders. You can see that to just something we look at where school districts sometimes get into, a rock and a hard place, is when there's a significantly low bid other than the other bids, and you're not quite sure why, and everything looks great. That might be, sometimes there's an expectation of a change order there, but okay. And then there are two there's single prime. This is going to be your traditional, when you're the district is going to contract with the general contractor, then they're going to contract with all the subs, or a multi-prime. This is not used as often, but sometimes it's used on smaller projects, or when there's district staff that can act as the general contractor essentially, or the construction manager, and they can then contract with all the trade contractors. So basically all the subs. For this though, it's still going to be the sum total of all those trades is what's going to be that project value. So you can utilize multi-prime, but it's not going to be, 20,000, 20,000, 20,000. It's going to be 60,000 for the project. And I'm actually going to go over this, go to the next slide, please, and go into design, bid, build. So design bid build, there are two kind of methods authorized by the education code. The first is standard design build. And then next we're going to talk about what's called alternative or progressive design build. Standard design build is only allowed for projects, again, over $1 million. So when you're doing design build, you are going to automatically have to pre-qualify because it's over $1 million. And then you're going to follow the award procedures for design build. This is different. It's a little bit of a different arc for, so stepping back, design build is typically what happens is the contractor employs the architect and it's all under one design build entity and everything does it together. And it's supposed to be that they are designing to eventually build in the and that's viewed as cohesive rather than a contractor getting a full set of plans, having to review the plans, see if there's any scope gaps, and then submit a proposal. The design builder does kind of all that work, the design and the construction together. But for the education code, it's a little interesting because the standard design build, like I said, is a different arc in terms of the district. So first of all, you use what's called a kind of you initially create like a partial design or bridging documents. So your initial concept, you don't have full plans, but you have kind of a partial design. And then the district goes through this process of first you go through, so it's actually a 3-step. First, you're going to pre-qualify. Then you're going to do a request for qualifications. And you create what's called a short list of these standard design build entities that meet the qualifications criteria. And we'll get into kind of when we talk about best value, what that can look like. Then from there, you're going to submit to those shortlisted entities. You're going to seek an RFP and you're going to seek proposals from them. And so then they're going to submit their proposals, and that is going to be kind of a lump sum price. So standard design build, think lump sum, and they're going to, estimate based on your rough design, kind of what they think all of it will be for design services and construction. So that is going to be, and that can be awarded based on competitive bidding or best value. And then after the award, the entity finishes the design, obtains DSCA approval, and constructs the project. Thank you. So why standard design build? Again, selection of the contractor, that's kind of a major factor, is that you're allowed to incorporate best value selection procedures. It is a little bit in terms of what we talked about, there is a 3-step process. The actual award of the design build contract is a little less stringent than the lease-leaseback, but there is still flexibility within each of those. And then again, because you're using lump sum, it's going to lock in the price at the time of the award. And as we talked about, there's this unity between design and construction. And so the goal is hopefully that you aren't going to have scope gaps. And theoretically, the design builder is going to be able to optimize value engineering, and it's going to be that communication. But 2, it's theoretically supposed to reduce change orders because they're with you every step of the way. Next slide. So why not standard design build? One, proponents have argued it's a little bit less control over the ultimate design and the construction, because the design build entity is going to employ the architect. It's different than when the district goes out, employs the architect, and then you have all these conversations and you have complete control over the design in that way. You're now interfacing with the design build entity for the design. So it's viewed as a little bit less control. And then there's a longer selection process than design bid build hard bid process, because like we said, there's that 3 steps. And then the contract price could be higher because it's awarded based on a lump sum. And since you're only using bridging documents, the design build entity is going to want to incorporate that to make sure that that's kind of incorporate what they don't know into the cost. And then again, no checks and balances between the architect and contractor in the traditional way we think about them. Yes. Oh, okay. There's no traditional checks and balances in terms of the district is not employing the architect, and the architect in a lot of roles acts as kind of the main project manager and as the in-between between district and the contractor. And so that is kind of a little different. Yes.
Considering the amount of input the school district would have regarding the ultimate design, is that negotiable, obviously?
Yeah, and that also has to do with just communication with the design build entity when you're selecting it. But absolutely, there's input you can do there.
So that could be, you know, addressed at that point. then.
It's just not the contractual distinction between the district and the architect. Alternative design build. So this is going to be the closest of what you kind of see in the wild of utilizing design build, but it's only allowed, the education code only allows it for projects over 5 million. So you're not going to, under this scenario, you're not going to have those bridging documents. You are going to kind of have the contractor come in at the beginning, so mostly using the same procedures, and then you're going to award the contract based on typically a fee. So that's going to be like a percentage fee. So they're going to, or they'll do the cost of the design and then the price. I'm sorry, get ahead of myself. It's that they'll submit the cost of services for the design, and then the price for construction is going to be based on a formula for the subcontractor's costs after they finalize the design. So that is within the contract documents. It does specify kind of how this formula is created and what the markup can be under that purpose, but the cost comes back in that way for the construction.
So is the main advantage of ADB possible lower total cost at the end?
Potentially, yes, because they're not, the contractor is not wanting to make sure they bake in kind of all those costs.
Error rate.
Exactly. Yep. They're unknown errors or unforeseen conditions.
But it also could be higher, right? If like, let's say the contractor, you know, said, oh, 5 million, but then he went and subcontracted and it's a more, it would also be in more than that estimate. So it could be expected, I guess, for the district to have to pay out more than what we originally anticipated.
That is something as well. Yes, because especially depending on when you start the design, let's say you hire the design builder, you start designing, maybe it takes 2 years, construction cost has gone up during that time. So the actual construction cost is unknown, but you're still fixed into what that formula and that variable will be to calculate those construction costs. So there is an unforeseen there at the time of contracting. Okay, next is leaseback. And this is probably outside of design bid build, hard bid. This is going to be most used by school districts. This is authorized again by the education code, and how it works is the district leases their property for $1 to the contractor. The contractor then leases back the improvements for the cost of the construction laid out as lease payments over time. And then after the construction, the lease terminates and the district assumes ownership of the improvements on the land. Next slide. Thank you. Wow, you're fast. So there are 2 types of leaseback. And I will say before this, you might have heard there was a lot of conversations about the case Davis v. Fresno. That was kind of this big case, but all of that occurred, and it talked about 2 things. One, it initially talked about the legality of school districts utilizing leaseback, but it also talked about potential conflicts of interests when there is a construction company offering pre-construction services and then also bidding on the project. The legality issue, well, and now the kind of conflict of interest issue has both semi been eliminated by the enactment of AB 2316, which expressly authorized school districts to utilize leaseback. And then for the conflict of interest piece, there was recent legislation that passed in the last year that there's some safe harbor provisions for these contractors. So there's 2 different types. Again, we're going to have leaseback lump sum and then LLB fee. And the main distinction to think about is whether or not you've had DSA approval when you can use these 2 different methods. So you're going to use lump sum after DSA approval. You're going to use LLB fee before DSA approval. And again, that kind of goes back to, as we talked about design build, is whether or not there's certainty on what that design is. And so for the lump sum, they have all the plans. They can appropriately assess the construction value and the construction costs. And so that is why you're going to use a lump sum method. And then the LLB fee is because they don't have completed plans. They're doing some pre-construction services. They're doing some value engineering. They're assisting with the design. It's going to be the same thing. That's going to be a fee. So it's typically a percentage fee method. Next slide. So with both of these, you can there is a pretty kind of lengthy process for awarding contracts to a lease-leaseback contractor. So one of the benefits we see using it is you can make a choice. You can still award a lease-leaseback based on low bid, or you can do best value. So first, there is an option there if the district wants to do it. But the main benefit a lot of school districts like is because you can use qualifications. Now, again, this is more like a 2.5-step process versus when we think about design build having a formal 3-step, because you still have to pre-qualify, and then you're going to, if you utilize best value, you're going to issue an RFQP, and then you're going to award based on a number of criteria, and that score that they get that determines the best value will be who you award the contract to. So thank you. Nope, that's great. So why not lease-leaseback? Some view this as a reduced competition. One, because not all contractors, there is a little bit of a carrying cost with lease-leaseback if you think about it, because you're paying over, monthly installments versus percentage completion. So some view that as some contractors are maybe not as inclined to submit bids for lease-leaseback. Some aren't as comfortable with the requirements. Other things are, change orders for price increases can still occur. That's true. That's universal, going to be throughout any construction project. There is no delivery method that is going to 100% isolate the district from change orders. Pre-qualification is required for all LOB contracts. So no matter if the contract is $250,000 or $1 million, for lease-leaseback, pre-qualification is required for all of them. There's also, lease-leaseback also requires use of what's called a skilled and trained workforce. And it talks about kind of apprenticeship requirements. Typically, you would have to, if you did not have a PLA in place, you would have to have the contractor submit monthly reports that then would need to be, the district preserves and also goes to the Department of Industrial Relations. The lease-leaseback statute, allows for an exception if you have a project labor agreement. The contractors don't have to comply with the skilled and trained workforce reporting requirements. They're still the same requirements because the idea is the same requirements are enforced through the PLA.
Question on the LOB lump sum.
Yes.
If the process went through and an amount was determined, and there was whatever unforeseen delays, construction changes, whatever, what is the ramification on the district and or the contractor?
It's going to be the same process as if it was a design bid build. So the general conditions are going to control what the contractor will be entitled for in terms of delays, whether it's a compensable delay, whether it's just they get additional time. That is going to be set by the general conditions, so the terms of the contract.
So the cost overrun, if any, and or time delay is negotiable.
It's negotiable based on, the terms. Did you have?
I was going to wait for your
Okay.
to be done with, and then had a couple of questions.
And then just one other point is that the LOB fee does not lock in the contract price like the lump sum that we talked about. So pre-qualification and best value. And I think this was one thing that I know even when I first got into this world, I was a little confused about, because how many times can we qualify a contractor? It seems like, but think of pre-qualification as what's going to be the benchmark. These are all of the contractors that are going to be in the pool that can submit. So it's a standardized questionnaire and financial statements that they have to submit. The district will pre-qualify, and then only those can submit proposals for no matter what the construction delivery method you use. And then they have to be pre-qualified at least 5 days before the bids are due or proposals are due. And sorry, just to comment on who can pre-qualify, it's all general contractors and then all MEP, so mechanical, electrical, and plumbing subs have to be pre-qualified.
Just currently in our region, what percent my expectation would be there wouldn't be too many firms that could handle large scale construction of school buildings. Is that a limited number of a rather small limited number of construction companies, builders that could handle a project like this, or is it open to out of state, anywhere, anyone? in terms of ability to build schools?
Oh, in terms of a bill, well, I'm not exactly familiar with just this specific area of the contractors who have that capacity. If you're talking about in terms of bonding capacity, I would say it's not limited. We don't see through up and down the state, we don't see one specific contractor doing all the work for schools. We do see there are general contractors that kind of specialize in that, as with kind of any company, they have specialties, but that doesn't necessarily limit. Or are you referring to just contractors who want to use lease back or
Yeah.
design build?
Lease back,
There is a narrower scope.
narrower. So it's limited number, but they have done this in the past and have capacity to do it in the future.
Capacity is a great question. That's all going to be driven by proposals. I don't have that answer for you, but one of the ways, and we'll, next slide.
Excuse me, Sarah?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I just raised my hand because I had experience with this question. So when the recession happened and the federal government released money for school construction, you had a lot of contractors who had never done school construction before suddenly bidding on things because there was no work elsewhere. So there was the school districts were a little nervous about, hey, this is not what your usual business is. And like anywhere else, sometimes it worked out great and sometimes it didn't. So it also kind of depends what are the economic uncertainties that are happening around. If this is what's out there for available to work and there's not a lot of other things, you may attract people who don't usually do this.
RFQ could define the terms of who are eligible to apply, who qualify to apply.
So the RFQ will define the terms on who's going to be the best value exactly. So the Q portion, we have the pre-qualification. Think of those again, minimum qualifications. Those are going to be more like your check marks. They've done this, they have bond capacity, they haven't, filed a claim with, or no one's filed a claim with them in the Department of Industrial Relations. So it's going to be typically a check mark. And if they meet all those qualifications, they are pre-qualified. So that goes into the Q part of the RFQ, which is evaluating based on this best value in picking those qualifications. And so if you go to the next slide, thank you. So this is an example of a score sheet. So of how you award best value criteria. And there's a couple of things that you have to include. You have to include a fee proposal. They have to respond to or be scored on the safety and compliance with the law, and then experience. But experience is very general. So you'll see, for example, for this score sheet as an example, this was a modernization project, and they set different score values for each of these qualifications. One of them being financial history and licensing, history of disputes. Another one, modernization experience. So that is where you're going to get to, who has had experience doing new school construction. You would include that, and then you would do an objective score. Let's say new school construction is, let's say, 10 points of your overall best value score, which is based on, let's say, 300 points, depending on how many qualifications and how you want to score it and how you want to weight those. That 10 points then is going to be, you are going to award the person with the most new construction or modernization experience with the most points, the least with the least points. So it's for lease back. You have to define whether it's going to be given a score or it's going to be essentially a pass fail. And then that score has to be evaluated based on objective criteria. And so that's something like experience, right? You can determine highest score gets 10 points, or most number of years gets the maximum points. Least number of years of experience gets the least number of points, and then we have some kind of sliding scale in between. So that is how you work in these areas that you want to review to give the best value to the district. There is still, fee plays a part in that, absolutely, and you can give, a lot of weight to that, but that's where you get it. So, and then this is an example of they had an interview score. So the way this scorecard worked. Oh, and also you'll see skilled and trained workforce plan, right? If the district didn't just approve the PLA, you'd want to know, and you're doing lease back, I think you're going to want to know what contractors have experience complying with the skilled and trained workforce requirements, because it can be for new contractors, it can be a little bit of a learning curve, especially because there are obligations to kind of get that information from subcontractors. So those are all things that that the district has the flexibility to change with this scorecard to award a lease leaseback contract based on best value. And here's an example at the end. So like I said, this was based on 300 points. The interim score was going to be all of the kind of qualitative criteria. And then you were going to give them an interim score, add that up. Then there was an interview, and the interview gets a score, and then the total combined score. So whoever has the highest score is the best value, and that's who the district has to award the contract to. If you go to the best value contractor and they say, no, we no longer want to do it, you can move to the second best value and so forth. Or as with anything, you have the option to reject all bids and proposals.
So I apologize. So just for my clarification, the actual criteria is more quantitative in terms of setting up a scale and working through that and justifying it to a certain extent. But when it comes back down to the final best value score, you have interview score. Is that more subjective and latitude for whoever's scoring it, be it the board or designated representatives?
Exactly. It's a mix of a qualitative and quantitative analysis because each of those kind of values that you're associating have a qualitative aspect. But in interview, that's probably the most so because that's a human interaction. But you still need to assign, I mean,
A
you could
percentage?
technically do participates in interview, doesn't participate in interview, pass, fail. That's probably the most objective. But most of the time it's you're given a score.
Thank you. Board members?
Well, that concludes that. I know that was a lot of information. No, I know that was a lot of information and was probably maybe high level or maybe too nitpicky, depending on your preference.
I think you kind of answered part of it. One was where's my notes? The pre-qualification process, that's where you kind of mentioned the scores and then kind of, because I think you mentioned some of the ones like if you go over $1 million, you have to pre-qualify them.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a difference between and I don't want to be kind of a record, but there is pre-qualification. That is always going to be initial step. That is different than the qualities that you are assessing in the best value.
Okay. So qualifications like you have that certain amount of bond, you have that certain criteria just to be able to bid on the project in general.
Correct.
Yeah. And that threshold is only met in certain processes, depending on what the amount of the threshold kind of is, right?
Always $1 million and always for leaseback contracts.
Okay. I know you mentioned somewhere one of the options, value engineering by the contractor. Can you kind of explain a little bit what that is?
Yes. So value engineering is typically like a contractor will review plans and they'll see kind of where there's scope gaps or where maybe there could be changes to for the owner to realize savings. Sometimes that's all given back to the owner. Sometimes it's split between the contractor and the owner, but that's a way they're value engineering based on their experience in the construction industry. When they're looking at the plans designed by the architect, they are seeing ways for improvements in cost.
So are you talking materials and design?
Could be. If maybe something, you probably see that less in the hard bid concept because it's a low bid and you can't specify a specific material. But definitely, I mean, if they see that there's something that's an or equal and they want to propose that, but maybe there's a significant savings for that or equal material. That's going back just as a quick, you can't specify a specific material by name or by brand. You have to allow for or equal.
Okay. Sorry about that, Jay.
Yeah, no worries. And then under the leaseback option, I know you mentioned a little bit about the process as far as the architect and the design. But on the leaseback, I guess I didn't fully understand what the steps would be in that case as far as.
Yes.
Yeah.
So leaseback, you are still the district is still retaining the architect.
Okay.
So the district will go out and get the architect. It's just where you are bringing in the leaseback contractor. So for example, if the district has a full set of completed designs, you're going to bring in the leaseback contractor after DSA approval. And that is when the lump sum is going to. If you're still in the design phase working with the contractor and you want to bring a leaseback, or you're working with the architect and you want to bring the leaseback contractor on board to do pre-construction services, kind of get that ball rolling, that is when you utilize a percentage fee. But the district's always retaining the architect in that case.
And in the leaseback option, essentially one of the big benefits is the way you're able to choose the contractor, right? Because in the most traditional concept wise, like contracts submit the bids and you always go with the lowest one. I mean, that's kind of required by law. Versus with the lease back, it kind of gives you a little bit more flexibility to add additional criteria such as value that allows you to kind of go not just based off the lowest, because obviously depending on the score that you give to price or fee, but also these other items that you feel are value to your district in choosing the lease back option.
Exactly, like experience.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
now with that being said, what Jacob just said, would that, would there be, I guess, let's say, and we have 5 bidders and, you know, because of all of these, so like you said, you know, points or whatnot, could there be a possibility of us, you know, ending up with just one because of, you know, them, all of these points or whatnot, or having a harder time, I guess, being able to get a contractor because of the different points and what we would like to, as the district would like to put in place?
I don't think the difficulty is necessarily with the qualification criteria. It's more about just the contractor's familiarity with lease back and whether they feel comfortable with utilizing that delivery method. So if the contractor does not like to utilize lease back or is not comfortable with that, that's going to be, they're just not going to submit a proposal. But for all those contractors that are comfortable with utilizing lease back, the changes in they're familiar with typically that process, that best value. So the change in one qualification criteria to another probably wouldn't be prohibitive of them submitting a proposal.
So essentially, if we put a best value qualification sheet together for the La Jolla as a modernization project, we might make that part of our score sheet, but like on the new school, we would not have the modernization, but we would have a rating for new school site building, right?
Yep, you can, exactly. So you can switch out the criteria that is best for the project. You know, if you were doing a EV charger, let's say project, experience with installing electric vehicle chargers could be one of those criteria that you want to incorporate into the best value. So long as you're setting forth what those criteria are and how you are awarding it, and you include the 3 kind of required by statute, which is experience, safety, compliance with the law, and fee proposal, you have flexibility within that to select the qualifications.
Okay, 2 questions. One is, did this, because this lease spec is more recent, right? That's used in the last.
It's been used since 2016. I would say different regionally. A lot in the Bay Area utilize lease back. When you're looking Northern California, they don't utilize it as much. Sacramento County area is kind of a mixed bag. Some love lease back, some use hard bid. So it really is kind of a regional, what the preference is.
Yeah, I guess 2016, I guess in my eyes is recent as far as school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like 30 years. Yeah.
Compared to where the only method,
Yeah.
especially when you look at what's now been authorized with design build, when the only method used to be hard bid, it is recent. Exactly.
Yeah. And the reason I'm asking this question is, historically, did this kind of come about because there a lot of issues with construction with going with the lowest bid all the time as far as in what was delivered to the school districts, and that they needed to look for additional options and being able to choose a contractor besides going for the lowest bid, and that's why they looked for other value? How did this kind of, I guess, come about?
Yeah, so historically it came about, other local agencies were actually kind of using this method, and it is kind of used in the private sector in a way where there is a ground lease. The whole concept of the lease back for the improvements, if you think of it, there's a ground lease and then there's improvements made thereon and who's going to own or retain. That is how it kind of initially, like, big picture concept came in, but also it was used by cities and counties and other local agencies. And then the school districts looked at it and said, oh, that looks like a great idea. We're going to adopt that. So,
okay. And then I know you had mentioned on some of the options as far as building, you mentioned there was a skill workforce requirement.
Mhm.
And you had even mentioned, like, if you don't have a current PLA in place, then there's certain skillful requirements, or the other ones did not have a skill work. Can you kind of dive into what they define as a skill workforce requirement?
So, and I apologize for not having the exact percentages in front of me, but so for both lease back and design build, I want to say, it's called a skilled and trained workforce requirement. So you have to employ, the contractor has to employ a percentage of journeymen and apprentices on the project. I think it's about, depending on the classification of the trade, and where they're at with the DIR, some have negotiated a lower or higher threshold. It's about like 60% has to make up the total workforce. Yes, because it's an exception. So the law requires you either implement the skilled and trained workforce requirement and reporting, unless you have a PLA that incorporates those requirements.
Okay. And then my other last question is, so I know with the lease back, it'll potentially give value because we can look at a lot of different things that we couldn't with the low spit in a way. So that's definitely a positive. So if we have a project, let's say it's modernization or for new school, and let's say it's $1 million project. And I guess I would work with competitive bidding is like we put it out there and the response we get, whether it's a lease back, is not what we're looking for. And so we reject the bids or we kind of go, what's usually the change time, or are you kind of committed one way or the other once you start a project? Like for example, let's say if we go with lease back and through that process, we feel like whoever we chose was in it. Or if we go to competitive bids, same thing, like we got the bids, but either the contracts are applied or the prices are not what we're looking for. Is there like delays in switching if needed to be done, or?
There's going to be delays to the
Of course, yeah.
project.
Yeah, of course.
But
yeah.
outside of that,
Yeah.
no, let's say you're doing this far in advance and and you go through this process and you're like, lease back isn't cutting it for us. So long as you're not getting into a contract, right? We're not bringing a contract to the board for approval and they're executing it. And then we're going to have to look at termination for convenience. We don't want to do that. But let's say you get all the proposals and they're not to your liking, you can reject, and the board can always pivot and say, okay, we want to use traditional design bid build in this case. Yep.
Or vice versa, or the other.
Or design build, or
Yeah.
exactly, lease back fee. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
But with the lease back, once we do get into contract, it does shorten, like what Mr. Sandoval said, like what we can do or changes and stuff like that.
It's going to be,
Gonna make it less than if we were to go with the traditional, like with the traditional one instead of, I guess, yeah, that like will it make it for us to like more complicated for us to make changes once we get in contract if we were to do a lease back instead of going with an STP or?
it's a good question. Yes, it's probably about equal, to be honest. It's going to be, it depends on the method. If you're talking about just changes of you initiate the contract process and you're getting into construction and there's kind of change orders coming, is that kind of what you're talking about? That process is going to be, it's going to follow the same change order process that's laid out. So if qualifies for a compensable change order, or if it qualifies for a delay, the change order process is going to be the same. It's just what that looks like to amend. You're going to have to, you bring what's called like an amended sublease. So you're going to then amend the remaining lease payments that would be due under the lease back to reflect that kind of increased cost of construction. So, but that's going to be, again, looking at it for each project and what's kind of included in the scope, what's not included in the scope, the contract documents you use and how they are drafted from the perspective of maybe the architect or the contractor or the district. That's all going to depend on that. So, but you can't then, once you get into a contract, without terminating that current agreement, you can't then go pivot and say, okay, we want to use you, but do hard bid. You couldn't do that.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
All right. Thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to give a little input here. I personally am leaning towards lease back. And the reason I say that is I'm always concerned about quality of construction and being able to have control of choice. And in this case, we can set up the criteria with RFQ, meeting our requirements at the same time, giving a subjective level of amount of input on whether we finally approve it or not. And bottom line is, we can always back out and go to design bid if we needed to. But I'm always worried about quality of construction, not lowest bid. You know, sometimes when I think of lowest bid, people sometimes, not saying all the time, but sometimes they purposely underbid, knowing that there's going to be cost overruns and later changes that are agreed to for additional funds. I like the flexibility of quality. We're not building homes or short-term solutions. These are buildings that will be there 50, maybe 100 years. So even though it might be cheaper up front, I would hate to have the maintenance and ongoing cost of fixing and updating over the term of the life of the buildings. So, and also the financial benefits as well. So for me, given all the possibilities, I'm leaning towards leaseback for our district. That's just my position right now.
Yeah, no other questions. I appreciate the presentation and stuff. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming down as well.
Thank you. All righty then, where are the teachers at? Ain't nobody here. All right, 9.2, a tentative agreement between SRTA and SRUSD for contract negotiations. Any representatives here? I am sadly disappointed. No, I'm being serious. No, I'm being serious. This is negotiated contract. We're here to approve it. And the union reps aren't here. I'm sadly disappointed. This is one of the cornerstones of what all unions fight for and work towards, and not have somebody here on the day of the vote. I'm sadly disappointed. Having said that, let's go ahead and hear it. Yeah.
So SRTA's negotiation teams met with the district negotiation team and have come to a tentative agreement. The agreement is as follows. Effective January 1st, the district's monthly contribution for medical benefits will increase 10%. The amounts are listed in the board agenda. Additionally, there will be a one-time off-schedule bonus of $2,700 to all certificated staff members paid in January. Beginning with the beginning of next school year, 25-26, the middle school athletic director will have 2 periods instead of 1 period of prep. So 1 prep period for academics, 1 for athletics. And finally, for staff members who need to pack and unpack a classroom to move, there's an increase in hours from 1 day to 2 days. Frequently, this happens at the end of the year, and they pack up but can't get to their new room until after it's cleaned. And so they said they really do need time as well to move into the new room. And finally, we didn't change amounts of stipends, but we added descriptions to help us, particularly with explanations to CalSTRS for what stipends are for.
Okay. I just want to say thank you to SRTA and also for the district staff. I appreciate that our district has open communication with the teachers and the unions and stuff. I know a lot of districts, there's always more confrontation, and I appreciate that, even though sometimes negotiation is a tough thing to do, that there's always a lot of respect between everybody that the table. And so thank you, SRTA. We always try to negotiate either the current year or the following year. And a lot of districts sometimes have clients that say, hey, we just negotiated our contract from 2 years ago, because they're that far back that they don't have that type of communication to be able to find solutions and be able to speak to each other. So thank you everybody who did the work. So, and with that, I'd like to make the motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye, Captain.
Motion 5-0.
That's the first time I've seen that one. I've been in 24 years. The idea we have a contract and not a single person here. Okay. 9.3, approval of public disclosures, AB 1200 for SRTA and SRUSD.
So that's my item, and I'm not gonna read what Becky just read again, but this is talking about the dollar amount. As you can see, total for all of the items that Becky listed is $1,040,154. Part of it is a one-time expense, and part of it is ongoing. So this document is like a 20-page document, which I have here, and it's right now at the county for review.
Okay.
And it needs to be approved so we can move forward with the county and our financial system and start working on the process.
And will you need signatures from us? I saw.
Yes.
It's okay. I motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye, Captain.
Motion 5-0.
All right. Moving on to 9.4, approval of CSBA manual maintenance. Lovely, September 2024.
Thank you. It's quarterly manual maintenance. And I appreciate our board vice president, Jacob Sandoval, who reviews these for us to make recommendations for the board approval. Our September updates included like changes in laws, regulation, updated language, and those pieces.
Entertain a motion or comment?
Motion to approve?
Second.
That's okay.
All those in favor?
Aye, Captain.
Motion 5-0.
All right, looks like 9.5 was tabled. We're gonna move on to 10.1. Next regular board meeting, December 11th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is. Any future board items fellow board members would like to see or propose?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Can I get can I motion to review?
Second.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Captain.
Motion 5-0.